At time of recording, the 5 Laps at Freddy's demo came out yesterday, which was August 7th, 2024. And I can pretty confidently say it's the most broken demo I've ever played. Broken enough that I felt compelled to make a video about it. Now, normally a demo is a vertical slice of a game, meaning a small portion of the game that the developers have made playable to represent the final product, or what they aim for that final product to be. But even ignoring the blatant bugs, this demo leaves a lot to be desired. And as a disclaimer, this video covers the initial release day version of the demo. Click Team has announced that they're going to be rolling out patches to improve it, but the fact that the demo was released in such a state is pretty inexcusable. Now, getting into the game design, 5 Laps at Freddy's, or FNAF as it unfortunately abbreviates to, is obviously a kart racing game. Now, this is a genre I kind of have a soft spot for. Games like Nightmare Kart and Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers have adapted game mechanics from existing games to fit a kart racing game in a really unique way. And while FNAF does try to adapt FNAF mechanics to fit the kart racing format, it's kind of lacking. Of course, you have the standard mechanics like drifting, boosting, shortcuts, and the items, but none of these are really done in a unique or noteworthy way. And more importantly, there's a lot of standard stuff missing. For example, the game has no indicator if you're driving backwards on the track. Instead, it just kind of respawns you without warning. There's also no visual to indicate the final lap other than the lap counter in the corner that kind of looks like a placeholder. And hey, who likes timing their boost so they can cut corners on a track to save time? Well, in FNAF, going off track even a little brings you to a complete halt and gives you this obnoxious timer that counts down before it respawns you. And because of the poor steering and slow reverse, odds are you're not getting out before the timer runs out. But most baffling of all, this game has no track map. With no indication of upcoming turns or the placement of other players, races feel really disorienting, especially when you get into the day shift and night shift mechanic. But this feeling's exacerbated by the fact that the racers ahead of and behind you are only indicated when they're nearby. And while seeing their icon change size based on their distance from you is a neat little detail, having it disappear completely after a certain distance is just really confusing. There were some points where I had to question if the other racers had despawned or not, but that's when I discovered how broken the AI was. On every track, there are spots where the AI will consistently get stuck, and most of the time they can't get themselves out, effectively taking them out of the race completely. This resulted in pileups every race, and the computer could rarely free themselves. There were a lot of times where I just had to push them out of the corner so I'd have people to race against. And when the AI isn't stuck, they don't really care about you. Never once did I feel like the AI was trying to target me. And it made the game feel really shallow once I realized all the AI cared about was reaching the finish line, if they could even get there. Now, FNAF's one standout mechanic is the day shift and night shift cycle. Now, I found this mechanic really promising, but the way they executed it made it kind of frustrating to deal with. The track periodically alternates between two states of day shift and night shift. This is indicated by a clock at the top of the screen, similar to the normal games. But with day shift, you have your standard racing track. Not a lot of crazy stuff going on, right? But when you get to the night shift, the track distorts, similar to the AR world in Ruin. In this state, the racers are periodically stalked and jump scared by the Endo-Wolf. And once you're jump scared by the Endo-Wolf, it just respawns you as if you had fallen off the track. Now, this is a really cool and unique mechanic I can see a lot of potential in. But in its current state, it's just kind of annoying. First off, the Endo-Wolf's target seems to be determined by RNG. And once you're targeted by Endo-Wolf, as far as I can tell, there's no way to escape it. It's much faster than you, and there were plenty of times where the second it spawned, I immediately got jump scared and respawned. Also, is this a health bar? I can't figure it out for the life of me. If you guys get it, please tell me in the comments. Now, one of my problems is this is a constant effect during the night shift, and that can get kind of annoying when, as soon as the target is jump scared, the Endo-Wolf immediately picks a new target. And when it does, it plays the same sound every time. And these jump scares can happen very quickly. So you end up having these moments where just one after another, you are hearing this endless howl as the Endowolf picks a new target. And this will happen repeatedly until the game shifts back to the day shift. And now the day shift and night shift cycle is constantly going until the race is over. So after a while, this can make races kind of annoying and repetitive. Now, if I were to change this, I would just have the Endowolf spawn once per race as soon as the final lap was triggered. And instead of having its target chosen by RNG, I think it'd be really cool to have it be like a hot potato fight, where players are constantly redirecting the Endowolf's aggro until the timer runs out and it picks its target. In this way, you could avoid the repetition of having it spawn endlessly, the annoyance of RNG, and just the frustration of not being able to escape it once it's targeting you. Again, there might be a way to target it, there might be a way to stop it. If there is, the game does not make it very apparent, but if I'm wrong, let me know. Also, I know the races are 5 laps to suit the name of the game, but it honestly hinders it. The races feel really drawn out compared to other kart racers. I mean, a race is typically 5 minutes or longer in FNAF. That's like roughly double the time it takes to finish a standard Mario Kart track. While it does try some unique things I can appreciate, the execution's a bit lacking, and it's honestly missing a lot of standard stuff you'd come to expect from a kart racing game. Now, FNAF is kind of an eyesore. The visual style of the game makes it look like it was more meant for mobile. It wouldn't shock me if ClickTeam had plans for a mobile port when this game comes out next year. When I played this game, I ran it on ultra settings, but it really didn't look different from the lowest settings. I do have a couple minor gripes with the game's art style. There are some elements that seem rather out of place. Now, obviously the spectators are a reference to the mainline games, but they just feel really disjointed from the game's overall art style. And being completely honest, a lot of the character portraits and models are just not great to look at. And while I do find some designs like Mangle and Foxy alright, the rendering style really isn't doing them any favors. Now, if it wasn't obvious from the footage, this game is barely animated. You have completely rigid characters in the character select screen and in the actual carts during races. They don't even have the characters hold the items. They just kind of float next to the carts. It really felt like I was watching some wind-up kids' meals toys instead of characters driving a cart. And when it comes to the night shift visuals, it makes some of the tracks really difficult to read due to the colors and lighting. Now, the visuals could change by the time the final release drops next year, but in its current state, the game is just ugly, stiff, and hard to read. Now, the sound design isn't shown much care either. I kept having to mess with my sound settings because of how unbalanced it was. I could barely hear the music due to how loud the sound effects were, and the sounds themselves are really generic and just seem to be copying Mario Kart's homework. The music's no different. Some of the track music and even the final lap motif sounds straight out of Mario Kart. Most baffling of all, the song for the Midnight Motors track feels like a sound-alike for 240 bits per mile and smashing windshields, and it's worse for it. I'm not sure why they couldn't use either song in a licensed game, but it just feels like a pale imitation. I don't have much to say in terms of the sound, it's just lackluster overall. This should have been called an alpha test rather than a demo with the state it's in. I won't retread ground with the computer AI and how it would get stuck on corners, but there's plenty of problems outside of that. Not only did my game crash multiple times, but there were several instances of me clipping into walls. I was also repeatedly trapped between the track and the wall, and the game refused to let me respawn, so it forced me to quit to the main menu. I also encountered a weird bug on the sinkhole track where it would randomly respawn me to this point, and if I drove a certain distance in either direction, it would just respawn me back to that point over and over, until I was forced to quit to the menu again. Now, after a while, I realized the sinkhole track was easily the most bugged track of the 3 available in the demo, so I decided to challenge myself a little. With how often I could see through the walls in the track, I theorized that there had to be a way to get out of bounds. And it didn't take much to prove my theory correct, but it's actually Endewolf I have to thank for my discovery. After being jump scared, I was placed on this ledge. Clearly, I didn't have the room to make the jump, but instead I drove straight down the drop without leaving the wall. It skewed my cart, and I was able to reverse back up and drive on the walls. Well, I'll let the rest speak for itself. Obviously, I can't say definitively what this game's development has been like, but the demo certainly gives me the impression that it was rushed for the 10th anniversary announcements. If these issues were found by a QA tester, which they must have with how easy they were for me to find, they clearly didn't have the time to fix them before the demo release. It's really disappointing to see a demo launch in this state, especially when it's part of like this big hype event. And I just wish the devs had more time to polish it up. Now, there are plenty of other issues I could list about FNAF that I've found in my short time playing it, but I'll keep it brief so you're not here all day. The first thing that caught me off guard were the controls. The default bindings feel very unnatural in ways. For example, Accelerate was on the left trigger with Drift on the right trigger. Now, I ended up swapping these buttons in my settings, but it made it so pushing either trigger caused me to accelerate and drift at the same time. So I was forced to revert my controls to default. Even after playing this game for over an hour, I kept forgetting which button was accelerate because it just felt so unnatural to me. The camera's also disorienting at times, especially at the sinkhole. It's kind of the problem child of this demo. Despite parts of the track curving in really dramatic ways, the camera either didn't rotate with the cart, or it would bug out and couldn't decide where to point. It's genuinely nauseating. Now, the thing that's most insane to me is that this demo does not have multiplayer. I was really looking forward to play it with friends, but it's just an experience I had to have by myself. Now, ClickTeam has stated they plan to offer multiplayer in the fall release, but from what I could tell, there's been no clarification from them if this is going to be online or local only. According to the Steam page, as of recording, it offers split-screen PvP or remote play. I don't think I have to say what the problem is with that. At this point, a kart racing game without online multiplayer feels like a death sentence. Even games like Garfield Kart have online multiplayer. Now, I could be wrong in my assumption by the Steam page, and there could be online by the time this game fully releases, which would be great. But I'm scared that it's gonna be local only, and I have no faith in Steam Remote Play making this like a reasonable experience with the latency. So yeah, some of these might be gripes. You might not agree with me. These are just the issues I found while playing the game. If it wasn't apparent, my first impressions of FNAF weren't that great. The visuals and gameplay left a lot to be desired. They weren't really polished at all, like you'd expect in a demo. It feels more like a playtest than anything. I mean, I'll have to wait and see if my issues with the game will be addressed in the coming patches for the demo, or the final release next year. With how broken and lacking it is with basic features, I don't see much reason to wait for it to come out. I honestly think it's trying to do something interesting with its range of mechanics like the day shift and night shift cycle, and the drifting is surprisingly fluid and easy to pull off. Though it's no better than any other kart racing game I've played. I'll probably just go back to playing Ring Racers and Nightmare Kart. But that's all I gotta say for now. If the demo patches significantly improve the game, I might make another video. And to be completely transparent, I'm not really a FNAF fan. But I have had a weird fixation on the series for a very long time. I did really try to keep this video detached from my feelings about the series for the sake of neutrality, but let me know if you'd like to see something more opinionated in the future. You can also follow me on Twitch. I stream 4 days a week and I focus mostly on media analysis if that's what you're looking for. So, until next time, I'll see you on the airwaves.